he's going to use this as a campaign tool. That's and it goes back to the point in that creepy interview that we just watched. The point that he was making was, all this is doing is putting me back in the limelight.
That claims to be against censorship, why are they doing this to the press? Because they can, and they will continue to do so as long as they believe that they can, until we, and not just we in this body.
Think Congress is boring?
Think Congress is boring? Think again. Adam Schiff found himself right in the path of what felt like a two-man demolition crew as Tyrus and Gutfeld took aim. They roasted him so relentlessly that he might be reconsidering his career choices. What did Schiff do this time to spark such a frenzy across cable news? Was it a scandal, a tone-deaf speech, or simply his knack for turning moments awkward? Keep watching, because by the end, you might be stunned, and your popcorn will be long gone.
I hate to act like the worst, the very worst of the media and the very worst of the Democrats about demanding this person get locked up and this person be tried and this person go away. But something's got
to stand up to them and tell them, no, you can't. No, you can't. If the slogan years ago was, yes, we can, today it has to be, no, you can't. No, you can't. No, you can't trample the rights of the American people. No, you can't censor our speech. No, you can't bring the weight of the Justice Department down.
The halls of Congress have never been short on drama, but lately, one man has become the undisputed target for political eye rolls, late-night skepticism, and more snark than a social media feed during an election night meltdown. Before we go any further, hit that like button and subscribe, because this is one you absolutely can't afford to miss.
Did Israel bully you into, like, you're just trying to, always taking a shot at his manhood, always trying to attack him to get him to, and I was very excited to see that he did not jump into it. He just answered them very calm. He's very tempered now. And the thing is like, he's knocked out their Navy, their Air Force, their radar. Now they're going after their rockets. They're sending a message to the world. And it's the exciting part of this is that the Middle East is actually finally responding.
Adam Schiff, once the face of solemn investigations and unshakable gravitas, now finds himself cast in a very different kind of show, one where Tyrus, the former WWE powerhouse with a thunderous voice, and Gutfeld, the king of biting satire and zero-filter mockery, have locked onto him like heat-seeking missiles, and they are holding nothing back.
pop their dentures when Schiff finally gets censored. And so the House condemns the lies of the man with the zombie eyes. Last night, the House voted on party lines to censure Adam Schiff for promoting the Trump-Russia collusion hoax, which was as believable as Brian Kilmeade getting fan mail. 2 for 2. Schiff becomes only the 26th member ever to be censured, but to his credit, he's still the only member to have a 12-inch neck.
It all begins with perception. For years, Adam Schiff painstakingly built his image as Washington's relentless overseer, the man who peers through the smoke and mirrors of political power and uncovers hidden truths others miss. He was a guy, the serious one, the untouchable one.
To criticize the economy, jobs, median household income, it's all good news. And when there's good news, his critics just say he's a crazy jerk. But if a crazy jerk can create one of the greatest economies ever, I think we need more crazy jerks. Yeah. No wonder. All right, I'll take it. I'll take it. I'm not greedy. Okay, so no wonder Schiff is so desperate. How desperate? In a secret interview, he allegedly tried to bully our Ukraine envoy into testifying.
Gutfeld went straight for the classics, exposing theatrics, questioning sincerity, and transforming every carefully measured statement into something absurdly funny without losing the core of the critique. Meanwhile, Adam Schiff, a man long accustomed to controlling both the flow of information and the reaction to it, suddenly found himself on the defensive. Every attempt at seriousness was met with analysis that felt playful on the surface but landed with precision, highlighting not just contradictions, but moments where confidence drifted dangerously close to arrogance. What made the exchange so compelling was a contrast in styles. Schiff leaned into his usual approach, structured arguments, historical references, and an appeal to authority that had served him well for years. But this time, that same approach seemed to work against him. The more deliberate and composed he became, the more it gave his critics material to reinterpret, reframe, and ultimately ridicule. His carefully curated image of moral authority began to feel exaggerated, almost theatrical in its own right, something that Tyrus and Gutfeld were more than willing to highlight. Gutfeld, in particular, thrives in that space where seriousness meets satire. He doesn't just challenge arguments. He reshapes them into something that exposes their weakest points while entertaining the audience at the same time. His commentary turns Schiff's tone into a focal point, suggesting that what once came across as composed and authoritative could just as easily be seen as overly rehearsed. Tyrus, by contrast, brought a grounded, blunt perspective, cutting through the rhetoric and focusing on what he framed as a disconnect between presentation and reality. Together, they created a dynamic that made it difficult for Schiff to regain control of the narrative. The pressure intensified when Schiff attempted to double down on past claims, leaning on institutional knowledge and procedural expertise to reinforce his credibility. Under normal circumstances, that strategy might have restored balance. But hey, it only seemed to add fuel to the fire. Each reference to the past opened the door for further scrutiny, as Gutfeld and Tyrus reframed those same points through a lens of skepticism and humor. What was meant to strengthen his position instead became another opportunity for critique. As the exchange unfolded, the tone shifted from standard political disagreement to something more performative, almost like a live dissection of public image itself. Schiff wasn't just defending his statements. He was, in effect, defending the persona he had built over years in the public eye. And in that environment, where every word was immediately challenged and every pause reinterpreted, maintaining that persona became increasingly difficult. By the end, what stood out wasn't just a clash of viewpoints, but the broader shift in how authority was being received. Respect was no longer automatic. It had to withstand scrutiny from voices that thrived on dismantling it. And in that moment, Schiff's greatest strength, his carefully constructed image, became the very thing that made him vulnerable.
He created 3 years of a massive fallacy that did so much damage to this country and made us miss probably one of the most important stories of our lifetime. We were having hearings on impeachment while the coronavirus was exploding. We talked about that virus in green rooms, but we had to do this impeachment story. We had to show these hearings. It's all on him, man. He's got to go. They got to investigate him. They got to...
Greg Gutfeld, never missing a beat, reframed each of those claims in ways that made them feel self-serving, overly technical, and undeniably performative. What made his approach stand out wasn't just the humor. It was the precision behind it. He drew a clear line between knowledge and wisdom, between action and posturing, forcing viewers to reconsider not just what was being said, but how and why it was being presented. This wasn't surface-level comedy. It was a calculated dismantling of tone, intent, and perception that made the entire exchange feel far more significant than a typical media segment. Tyrus amplified that effect by grounding the conversation in something more relatable. Where Gutfeld leaned into sharp satire, Tyrus focused on the disconnect between political ritual and everyday reality. He highlighted contradictions, called out what felt staged, and framed the entire situation in a way that resonated with viewers who often feel detached from Washington's polished presentations. Together, they created a layered dynamic, one that blended humor with critique so seamlessly that it became difficult to separate entertainment from analysis. At the center of it all was Adam Schiff, whose usual command of tone and messaging began to unravel under the pressure. Every attempt to reassert authority seemed to backfire. Carefully chosen words, deliberate pauses, and structured arguments, once his greatest strengths, were transformed into material for critique. Each phrase was reframed, each pause reinterpreted, and each assertion tested in real time. The more he leaned into his established style, the more it appeared out of sync with the rapid, unsparing pace of the exchange unfolding around him. What made the spectacle especially compelling was its rhythm. One moment, viewers found themselves laughing at a perfectly timed remark. The next, they were leaning in, genuinely engaged with the underlying critique. That constant shift between humor and seriousness created a momentum that was hard to ignore. Gutfeld delivered punchlines that cut deep, while Tyrus added weight and perspective, ensuring the conversation never drifted into empty mockery. Instead, it maintained a sense of purpose, an ongoing dissection of how political authority is constructed and perceived. As the exchange continued, patterns became increasingly clear. Schiff grew more defensive, signaling that his usual strategies of controlling the narrative were no longer effective. Gutfeld seized on every subtle cue, tone shifts, hesitations, emphasis, and turned them into moments of sharp, often biting commentary. Tyrus reinforced a broader point, that polished political theater, no matter how refined, struggles to resonate in an environment where audiences expect authenticity and immediacy. This wasn't just about one politician under scrutiny. It reflected a much broader shift in media and public engagement. The traditional boundaries between news, commentary, satire, and cultural influence are blurred, creating a space where narratives can be challenged from multiple angles at once. In that environment, authority is no longer assumed. It is constantly tested, reinterpreted, and, at times, dismantled. Timing played a critical role. Schiff's deliberate, methodical delivery collided with the fast-paced, reactive style of Gutfeld and Tyrus. Every misstep was immediately amplified, every overly formal phrase reframed, leaving little room for recovery. It became less about a single argument and more about the cumulative effect of sustained scrutiny. Over time, that pressure chipped away at the image Schiff had carefully built, exposing the vulnerabilities beneath it. By the end, the transformation was undeniable. What began as a routine political critique evolved into something far more impactful, a cultural moment that blended humor, insight, and real-time analysis. Viewers weren't just entertained. They were engaged, questioning, and, in many cases, rethinking their assumptions. The exchange demonstrated how powerful, well-executed satire can be, especially when paired with grounded, relatable commentary. For Schiff, the challenge became navigating this new landscape, one where credibility depends not just on experience or presentation, but on the ability to withstand immediate, often unforgiving scrutiny. For audiences, the takeaway was equally clear. In a media environment driven by speed, personality, and perspective, the old rules of political communication are rapidly evolving. Ultimately, this moment served as a reminder that perception is never fixed. It can be reshaped, reframed, and redefined in real time, especially when sharp wit and critical insight come into play. Gutfeld and Tyrus didn't just critique. They shifted the conversation entirely, turning a standard exchange into a lasting example of how humor and analysis can collide to challenge even the most carefully constructed public image. 3 messages remaining. Upgrade to Plus to keep the conversation going.